Hello, folks. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Good to be with you tonight. If anyone's kicking about tonight, then it'd be good just to let me know what you're up to, but also let me know that you can hear me all okay. Right, let's get into to tonight's session. And sorry for anyone who was dialing in before to last month's. Technology was against me, but hopefully everything's going to hold up all okay tonight. All right, so I wanted to highlight this particular topic because I think perhaps more than anything, this was an area that I just had no idea about, no inkling or no interest in, probably when I was immersed in high performance sport. And I think that this is a valuable, rich, and worthwhile area to explore for people. So I think it's well worth your consideration. And if you're interested in supporting people generally to helping them to improve, then people who are interested in developing their sporting goals that aren't necessarily paid up full-time elite athletes, that's worth you considering. All right, so anyone who doesn't know me, my background is in elite sport, Olympic sport first and foremost. In the 1990s, working with the British rowing team, helping those teams understand how they can help the boat go faster, through to athletics, numerous other Olympic sports, including bobsleigh, and crazy sports like that. And I actually coached at an Olympic level. This is Kelly Southerton, supporting her to her running goals as a heptathlete. That's an interesting one because it actually Kelly's trust in me as a coach to support her to improve her running performance for the Olympics was full of loads of ups and downs. She came fifth in the heptathlon at the Beijing Olympics and in the 4x400 meters. And actually 10 years later, she was awarded two Olympic medals. I've also got a background in supporting professional sports, whether it's Arsenal, Saracens, Middlesbrough Football Club, through to numerous other Olympic setups. And I'm actually supporting the French government system, the Gagnon en France, which is the system to help them maximise the opportunity of hosting the home games in Paris. I'm also a director of Athlete Now, and that might be an interesting platform. If you're thinking about developing your own consultancy, theathletenow.com is well worth you looking up because that is an opportunity to match people with a need. So if you've got clients, either sports people, sports coaches, sports teams, and people who've got services to offer, Athlete Now does the matchmaking part of it. So setting your own profile up is a good way of actually getting in front of clients that might be interested. Okay, so for tonight and hopefully for good content, if you want to ask any questions, then please do. But you'll need to subscribe. It's a 1 minute delay on being able to subscribe and being able to ask your questions. So if you're interested in further content and you want to ask a question tonight, then subscribe to the channel and off you go. And for those who are interested, we've got an offer on some of our courses at the moment. The graduate bundle, where you've got 6 kind of graduate courses, all the way from where do I want to go in my career, developing the skills for work, how you develop interviewing excellence, all the way through to putting your portfolio and your CV together. Also, the applied pro courses, physiology with myself, nutrition, psychology, S&C, and data, and setting up your own performance consultancy, and that all of those courses are half price. The code, if you're interested in that, is applied. So when you go into supportingchampions.co.uk/online course, you'll see all the courses, and when you go to checkout, you'll need to put in the code applied. With those courses, you also get access to the community of supporting champions. I was planning to do a webinar on 10 ways to work more effectively with coaching, and this streaming system didn't actually work. So I'm going to reschedule that. So stay tuned for when that might be live. So what I thought I'd do is maybe just talk for about 20 or 30 minutes, and if anyone's got any questions about this particular area, then to post those, and we can get engaged in some discussion. But like I say, I wanted to recognize this because I think this is an opportunity for people to develop great practice, to do things that they are very good at, supporting people. But the executive market, people in business, people who have got different pressures to perhaps those that are funded full-time athletes. And so I wanted to share some experiences of the things that I think work well, but also some of the things that I don't think work very well. And sometimes I've brought a few people into my team to be able to deliver, and it hasn't been great. And so these are probably some of the expectations that I would have of other practitioners too. If I was going to refer other people to work on behalf of myself or on my team, or equally refer just pass the work on over to people, which I normally do. So I think if we think about the idea of the different types of clients that you might be working with, you've got elite athletes who are gunning for a world title, an Olympic title, or potentially that they are putting their own support team together. It could be Premiership footballers, it could be NBA players. Increasingly, you're starting to put their own team together. So that's one market. The sub-elite market, where they are trying to get to that level, that's another ripe area that support teams are starting to assemble around. And I've called them keen, but I mean, you can call them anything, weekend warriors or people who've got sporting challenges. But this is a massive, massive market. This is a market for not only running events, athlete events, endurance sports events, the rise of all sorts of different types of sporting opportunities. So whether it's the rise of parkrun through to all sorts of different opportunities, whether it's Ironman triathlon, Marathon des Sables, summiting Kilimanjaro, trans-Pacific yacht races, Norwegian Arctic Triple. So all of these different things are of interest and are growing in popularity. And that means people are thinking, well, I want to take on this premium challenge for myself, but I'm not sure necessarily how to do that. And you're going to have a group of people who know where they want to do what they want to do, but they don't know how to get there. Equally, it's not just the sort of endurance market, but you've also got people who are interested in high intensity training, CrossFit, Orange Theory, obstacle courses, functional fitness training. And so people who are interested in their own health and well-being are an area which you can support people with. And the same fundamental techniques that you can help get elite athletes to the top, you can get executives to improve their performance. Now, whether it's sporting opportunities, sporting challenges, that's one aspect. But equally, I think that there's a group of people out there, particularly the executive market, who are suffering from burnout. They're interested in health. They want to improve their daytime focus. And they're understanding that physical exercise, mental skills, better nutrition, these are areas that can improve their ability to focus and be productive. Sleep is under attack from all sides, whether it's social media, whether it is exposure to blue light, whether it is always being on with an asynchronous world where we've all got to work at different times of the day these days. Equally, now travel is back on the agenda. People having to go across the Atlantic or to the Far East or vice versa around to Europe and perform and be at their best. There's this whole area of wearable technology where we're all wearing these different devices, but we don't know what they mean. And so it's spewing out this information, and people are looking at it thinking, well, it says I've had a good night's sleep, or I don't feel like it, or I've had a bad night's sleep. They don't necessarily know what to make of that information. And rather than undertaking a PhD in wearables and sleep technology, what people probably need to do is actually tap into some specialist sports science support. And so that potentially puts it into frame where you might need to be optimizing your fitness advice for people with minimal time. And obviously, people want to feel better about themselves. I think what is unique about this area is, but sort of by day, you've got a bunch of people who are working hard, they are achieving, and they want to do well in that working environment. And so it might be that some of your support can improve their ability to perform during the day, whether that's nutrition, sleep, fitness advice, mental skills, for example. And so this optimizing that working performance is a key area. And equally, it might be that once they're finished or before they start work, they're actually investing in developing their physical, mental selves for outside sporting challenges. So it's not necessarily just in work, but they want to be at their best in and out of work. And there's some interesting research showing that undertaking a sporting challenge is something that people are defaulting to because there is a volatility, there is uncertainty, and there is a challenge and ambiguity in work that people aren't necessarily able to control. And so they're reaching for greater control in these sporting challenges. One thing is clear, though, that you have to be aware of, that you have to be managing and supporting people with, is your advice has to be super, super sharp. Really, I say that because these are time-starved people. To put that into context, we've got people getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and travelling to work for 2 hours and then working non-stop all the way through till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then thinking about, right, what am I going to eat today? What am I going to do for physical exercise? And so there is little opportunity for you to have bloated, excessive, unprioritized advice being dished out. So if there's one thing that I really think you should make sure you're doing is building on the work that they're already doing. So rather than saying, here's my full-on training program for you to start and undertake, when they haven't necessarily carved out that time, find out what time they've allocated and start to work with that and try and optimize the time that they're spending on physical training, mental skills training. Look for those opportunities for you to make an intervention, that you're able to add value. Rather than, I think, perhaps if you're coming from an elite athlete background, you're probably going to be thinking, well, they've got all day. They've got all day. They're not off to work. They should be able to put all of these different strategies in place. And often the limiting challenge there for you as a practitioner is simply to get the idea across the line. You really need to convince them that this is a priority for you, and you need to make sure that you are pitching and you're persuading. But for this level of clientele, I think you really do need to make sure you find out what opportunity of time you're really working with, and then make that really sharp. That's probably a pitch that I will give you advice. I will advise and support people who are time starved. That's probably going to resonate with people. That's probably going to make them think, yeah, I haven't got much time to just be messing about. And so the additional pitch there is for you to be thinking and clearly communicating that this is highly prioritized. What I'm not going to be doing is just adding loads and loads of things for you to do for the sake of it. Find out what their appetite is to take on new behavior change and to be able to work with that. But it has to be tuned to finding out the time that they've got available. However, before you start to get into that place of your advice, I would highly recommend making it clear what the minimum expectations is for you to start work with them. And so this is really guided by you understanding what their needs analysis is. What does success look like for them? Because if you've got an Olympic athlete going for a 400-meter gold medal, or if you've got a footballer who's trying to get more Premiership time, or if you've got an NBA player recovering from an injury, it's quite clear what the objective is: more game time, faster running speed, better preparation, better recovery time between training sessions. Those sorts of obvious things that you need to take on. Be really clear, what does success need to look like for you? Now, that could be that somebody just thinks, actually, you know what, I just need a little bit more energy during the day. And the sporting challenge there is to enliven me and give me something to focus on that will spill over to the day. Now, it could be that success needs to look like better focus during the day whilst I'm working. Or it could be, actually, I want to feel better about myself, physically feel better about myself through my sporting ability. I want to feel fit. Or it could be, actually, I've got a very clear time that I want to deliver for an Ironman triathlon. Or I want to place in that CrossFit competition. But be clear on what success looks like for them, and just as you would anyway with an elite athlete, with a sports person, is start to ask questions about broader life context. What's going on in their life? What's their life situation look like? What does work entail? What's their travel? What does their schedule tend to look like? One executive that I was working with, he was a high-level CEO, and he said to me, look, I want to improve my sleep, I want to improve my fitness, and I want to improve my focus. And I was working with him for a few years. And I asked him what his normal schedule was, and his executive assistant sent that all the way through to me. And I said, okay, it looks busy here. And it just said like India. And he was based in Hong Kong. He said India, China, US, France, Moscow. And so I'm thinking, okay, this guy is busy. We're going to have to get my jet lag cap on here, and I'm going to have to start working with him to optimize this. But actually, the demand that he was under, he was meeting with 3 global presidents whilst he was touring. He was pitching to them to undertake major city-based projects. He had to be at his best, but his schedule was enormously demanding. And success for him looked like not finishing that block and being exhausted as he would normally be. So I highlight this because some of these factors could really colour and inform the type of training that you could put in front of somebody, the sorts of things that you really need to be unpacking and exploring for people. Once again, if you're working with a full-time elite athlete, they have got all day. And whilst they might want to fill the afternoon with Netflix and playing PlayStation, they typically, it's their job and their responsibility to undertake recovery exercise, recovery modalities, or additional stretching or rehabilitation exercises. That's their job. They fill their time with that. But for executives, if it's a different landscape, those areas are already full. And so you've got to be shrewd in understanding what their needs analysis, what sporting excellence looks like, or excellence looks like for them, and what are the other competing demands for their effort and their recovery. So in terms of, I think this probably goes, this should apply to all your interactions anyway, but there is a sort of seniority to working with executives and professionals that demands that there is error-free, it is excellence first and foremost. So reliability, consistently delivering error-free, timely results. You have to be on it. Do not say yes to people or say that you're going to do something without the scheduled, prioritized effort to make that happen. Your expertise probably needs to be the higher end of your field. So deep knowledge, proficiency in your field. You've got to know your stuff and to have some years on the clock for thinking about delivering to this level. You have to be proactive in your communication, and brevity, I think, is important. regular updates, what's expected, regular reminders, so that it's simple and it's effective for them. They know where they stand. Typically, the executives I'm working with are holding thousands and thousands of things in their head already, and what they don't need is a 1,000-word email from people. Personalization, so tailor solutions. This is, I think, where you can productize your work. It's not necessarily just about you rolling out this stock thing that you have done 100 times before. It's actually really tweak and change the prescriptions that you're making and the advice that you're giving based on their needs and the person's preferences. You know, if it might be that you really try and optimize a diet against sort of best practice for an elite athlete, but it could be that if people just say, I just don't like that food, or I just wouldn't want to do that type of exercise, or I'm not really into this type of movement, then personalize it. I had one executive who was trying to improve her daytime performance, and I said, well, what type of exercise do you like? Tell me, do you run? Do you cycle? Do you cross train? Do you get access to a gym? What's your favorite type of exercise? And she said, I can't do it at the moment, but I would love to be able to dance again. And for her, success was returning back to being able to dance. And so we developed a strength and conditioning program, a little bit of a weight loss program, to be able to allow her to get back to being able to dance. And last point there, efficiency, maximizing the value and outcomes with minimal time and resources. So again, just not throwing everything at them necessarily, surfacing ideas for them that you think, actually, you know what, that's something that is going to give them a big return for a minimal effort. So big ROI, return on investment. Do this one thing, and that's really going to get you a long way there. You can then start to add little bits if they're starting to say, come on, give me a bit more. But rather than saying, here's your 50-point bullet plan of sleep development, and people are like, I'm going to lose sleep over trying to be able to deliver that. Maybe actually just giving them the top tip or 3 tips to develop their sleep, for example. Just a word on pricing. So the top image there is a Lexus and the bottom image there is a Skoda. And these are effectively the same car. The same engineering. There's no real monetary difference. But you'll pay about a third more for a Lexus versus a Skoda. And so this is an important thing for you to get your head around. It's an opportunity for you to be thinking about increasing your prices for somebody who has some wealth, has a high-level job in an executive market, because what they're doing there is paying a premium for good quality advice. That is benchmarked against the work that you do in sport and with performers. And so you've got to be clear that this is an important aspect of how you position yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean that your hourly rate improves massively. It should do, but be under no illusions that if you don't price yourself high, people will not take you seriously. If you go in and say, absolutely, my high-end elite experience sports science support work that develops nutrition of elite athletes is £20 per hour, they'll think, I don't think you're very good. You don't even back yourself. And don't forget also, and when it comes to pricing, is that typically with executives, there's an increased demand on your time too. And so what I often think about is that the pricing needs to be appropriate to that person's wealth or experience or expertise or what they can afford, but also it's not just going to be the contact time. There's going to be analysis time. There's going to be additional reading through data, taking text messages out of hours, those sorts of additional demands that can come that mean that you're hourly rate is still improved, but actually it's still a cost to you. It's still a good amount of work. Sports scientists are naturally altruistic, humble. They don't like to take any of the plaudits, and that's fine. That's fine. But you have outstanding expertise. You have experience that can serve the best in the world, the best teams, that you're applying to people in unique circumstances in sporting terms. And so if you've got executives who want to tap into that, they are already kind of pre-selected. And so you need to be thinking, I'm going to price this appropriately. And you've got to have some guts about you. For the price also, though, what you're trading, and ultimately price and is all about you trading an offer, is that if somebody's tapping into you as a sports scientist, then they should be increasingly confident they're going to be able to reach their sporting goals or their working performance goals. There's a reassurance. Probably you're not just going to say, this is my plan, and if it doesn't work, you stick to the same plan. You're going to have a reassurance that we'll work it out for you. And that's important, that you probably pitch a bespoke approach. What we're not going to do is just offer you one plan, and if it doesn't work, I'll just keep working with that plan. You're going to tailor it. You're going to shape it to their particular need. It's likely, if you're a scientist, you're going to be adding some data, so data-driven insights, and that's a unique aspect of our world that we can offer supporting executives. Cutting-edge research. There's nothing quite like being able to say to people, hey, look, this latest idea, I'm gonna propose it to you because I think it's something that can actually really help you. Or to be able to bust myths. Constant questions about ice baths, or this latest supplement that Andrew Huberman is trying to sell because of a mouse study. You can dissolve some of that and actually say, hey, look, there's sports science, and then there's sort of marketing, and cut through the noise for that and alleviate the confusion. All this data that we've got access to, all this wearable information, people need to cut through a lot of that noise and find clarity. Your confidence, your assurance, I'm going to advise you in a way that gives you focus, is probably going to return results for you. So that's what you can offer. That's a benefit of them coming to you and not a personal trainer, or just listening to podcasts for the sake of it and then trying to filter out what works and what doesn't. A couple of final points. One is just have a think about when you might want to have a go at this. Your experience level probably needs to be plus 5 to 10 years or so before you start entering this market. That needs to match their experience to a certain extent. I can't imagine that I would have had any traction with this in my early career, maybe in my 20s even. So you need to probably have a few runs on the board. You need to have done a few tours. You need to have seen a number of athletes before you can probably do this. This is a little bit like a 22-year-old executive coach, or a 25-year-old lifestyle coach. Well, really, you've got to be thinking about that in terms of, have you got life experience? Have you been there and done it? Have you seen a certain number of people before I'll believe you? And that's not me being ageist in any way. This is just me being realistic, that there's probably going to be a bit of a disconnect if you've got a 50-year-old executive looking at a 20-year-old fresh graduate. It might not work. The only exception to this is if that person might be a family friend or somebody who already knows you and already trusts you and is willing to start having that conversation with you. And actually that might be an opportunity to cut your teeth in this particular area, rather than necessarily sort of suddenly changing your website, your Instagram profile, or whatever it might be, and advertising that you're working in this area. get some experience with people who want to improve their 5K, or they want to improve the way that they appear, or want to lose a little bit of weight. Those are things that you can help everyday public with, and that's probably something that's going to give you some good experience. I would just express a little bit of caution of just suddenly going for this executive market if maybe that you haven't got that many years under your belt. The added benefits: it diverses your client base, explore different needs. So understanding that this person is traveling around the world, and they're not only under a jet lag demand, they're under a scheduling demand, but they're also under a pressure demand of sitting in front of 3 presidents and pitching for business effectively. That was fascinating, really, really interesting, high performer in their own right. So exploring different needs can be illuminating for yourself and increase the breadth of your perspectives. Develop your thinking and your applied skills. Thinking, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that could apply across here. I've taken ideas of working with executives and applied those working with athletes. And I think the 2 experiences have really informed my applied skills. I don't think sports science generally is a very well paid career. I think that there's a few at the top that can earn a good, healthy wage. But I think executive market is one that actually you can probably make a good level, a good rate, if you were to start to go into that area. And top tip on that, if you've got pricing on your website, then that means that you have less flexibility. If you say that your hourly rate is 30, 50, 80 pounds an hour, and you put that on your website, then you won't be able to charge suddenly 500 pounds per hour with an executive. And working with people who really value your services. And sometimes when you're assigned to working with a team, you've got to do a lot of buy-in. You've got to do a sort of a bit of, trust me, I'm good. You've been assigned to them, and they might not necessarily think, yeah, you're who I need in my life because of that. And so if people are coming to you to access your services because you have this applied sports science background and you're offering it to executives, it's more likely that that person is going to get you. They're going to get what you know, and they're going to lap that up. So there's a few additional benefits, and I think this adds a real character to the type of clients that you can work with. Hey, look, I'm going to throw it to you now. I'm going to come out of the presentation and ask you what your any questions that you have, any interests that you have. If you've got any questions, ask. Then subscribe to the channel, and then that will allow you to ask any questions. And also, hopefully, for the good content, some of the clips, the podcast, the super useful discussions. And if anyone's interested, the code that you need for half price discount on the graduate bundle and the applied pro courses is applied. Applied is the code you need in the checkout. So great. Look, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. If there are any chats, any conversations, let's have a little look to see if there's any that are coming in here now. Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Great to see you tonight. Pricing is the area I really struggle with pitching right. I tend to go too low with these. Yeah, it's an interesting one, Nicole. I think that there's an opportunity for you to earn, and so you've got to think about who that money is serving. It's not necessarily thinking about that's an obscene amount of money for me to charge, but where's the loyalty for that money to serve? And so is that your family? Is that supporting your parents? Is that going on a nice holiday because you need to deserve it? Or renovating your home that you want to create a wonderful, loving home? Where's that loyalty lie? The other simple thing is if you want to be in this particular game, you've got to be able to charge more. There's a legitimacy to that. Now I've pulled in other providers to support me, and I've put them forward to working with executives without doing any of the coaching in the middle. And what's happened is I've got an immediate message back from the executive saying this person can't be any good because of their rate. And so I've let that person down by not saying, "Oh, what's your rate? You need to charge a bit more," and guide them, support them to be able to charge a little bit more too. You'll only know that you're right at the right level is if some people are saying that's a bit too much, and it could be that there's always an opportunity. Well, there's often an opportunity to negotiate. So I think you've probably got to go for it a bit. My other top tips for setting pricing is never set the price on the phone or over Zoom. I always say, okay, I'll take your package, I'll understand everything I've discussed with you today, and I'll come back to you. And my second tip for that is my rate for this work is. And so rather than would that be okay if I charge you this? Sorry about that. I know it's a bit expensive, but if you want to haggle me down, none of that stuff. My rate for this is. And so it's just very clear for that person to understand. Now, if they come back and say it's a little bit too high and you're really desperate for some of that work, then it could be you say, it's okay, I'm offering a rate at the moment, a discounted rate. Nicole, I can see you've come back again. I've inadvertently ended up with executives over the past several years and then would price the same. But you put this in perspective, I ended up spending more time adjusting to their extra demands. Yeah, so interesting. So you've got that experience of working with some of the higher level executives, and you've just thought it will be a transactional. Well, I wouldn't belittle your work, but if somebody goes in for a personal trainer, then they've got an hour slot or a 45-minute slot. They go in, they come out, and that's the slot that they get. And there's no phoning them up and extra work in addition. So yeah, often executives they want their value. Typically, I think it needs to pinch. It needs to pinch them a bit, and they'll value it even more. And also, people who are just after a cheap one or a free bit of service, they're often a nightmare to work with. And so pitching it at a higher level means that you often have somebody who's more engaged. Idris, how you doing, Idris? How did you first get interested in working with executives, and do you find it rewarding, and if so, why? I first started working with people way back. This was really early days in my career, and it was just some of those dinner parties or some of that sort of social gatherings when people would say, "Oh, that's interesting, you do that. Don't suppose you ever coach extra people?" And I sort of go, not much, only a few cases. And that also makes them feel a little bit special. Only a few cases that I would take on at a time. And then someone, would you consider coaching me? And at that point, I might then say, okay, well, let's have a chat about what that might look like for you. Now, that's something I did probably when I was about 30, so a little bit earlier in my career. And I've started getting fascinated because I just thought I'd have the conversation, listen to that person, hear what they've got to say. And I thought that's a really interesting performance problem. Some of it was just, how do I get bigger guns or look in shape for holiday? And I'm not interested. But if someone's taking something on, I'm like, you know what, I'm really interested in supporting that person. And so for me, it's interesting work, not necessarily this sort of fussy, I only work with elite athletes type of view of the world. I can apply what I know to that person facing that challenge and they can benefit. Do I find it rewarding? Absolutely. Some of the best conversations I've had have been from these types of works. Idris again. How do you manage working with executives alongside your other clients? Any different? Do you feel you have the adequate headspace? Um, well, what I tend to do is I will view it as a case, and I'll only have a certain number of cases that I will take on. The the I don't think it helps if you just go off the shelf and go, well, this is my training program. Here's one I've made earlier. I think you charge it in a way that I'm going to create this for you so that it's bespoke. Now that could be that there's a copy and paste of a certain training program, certain training session that you pull in because you think, I know that session's a really good session. But training design and training prescription, it has to land with that person that they think they've listened to me, rather than thinking, oh, they only set training sessions for the afternoon when actually they know I'm busy then that creates a little jarring moment where they've thought, I haven't listened to my program. And that's one complaint I've got of bringing a few other people in to help me support executives is I then get a complaint to say that person wasn't listening. That person's prescribed that food, and I told them 3 times I was allergic to them. I don't want to work with that person again. That's where the error-free aspect is important. So I think have some systems, analysis systems, some macros in Excel or wherever it might be, or go to people that you can refer to do some extra work for you. But ultimately view it as another one of your clients that requires your time. Yeah, so a little bit different. But, like I said, I think there's value in it. There's real value that you're considering these unique demands compared with just, say, running around a track. Great. Any other questions? I'll give it a moment just before I sign off, but let me know if you've got any other questions. And if you have, then super. If you haven't, then all right, good. I'll leave it there. Wonderful fit to connect with you all tonight. Thanks so much for the conversation, and I hope that's been of use for you. All the best. Take care.